podcaster, I hardly know her.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of the I Hardly Know Her podcast. I'm your host, Megan McCaleb. I'm glad to have you here with me. As usual, I'm bringing a really incredible guest to share insights, personal stories, and honestly, whatever comes up, because you know how that's how we flow on this podcast, is just having really great conversations with people who are passionate about different topics so that you can use this as an invitation to cherry pick whatever nuggets might be helpful for you in this season in your life. So thank you so much for tuning in. Today's guest is Carol Trotter, and I actually met her through kind of the network of folks that I do my coaching, like my professional coaching. You know, I mean, I coach, but like my coach. You hear what I'm saying, folks? We all can benefit from being in a space of collaboration and empowerment. And I really love the coaching vessel that we are all building our businesses in, because when you're surrounded by people who are sharing true experiences and being really vulnerable and upfront about where we are having challenges, we can work together to move to a better place quicker. And so she is also a coach, and I'm excited to bring her on. Carol is a certified holistic nutritionist, a Reiki master, and the CEO and founder of the Hormone Breakthrough System. Carol works with women, helping them understand what's happening in their bodies so they can reduce and or eliminate their menopausal symptoms. So welcome to the show, Carol. I'm really glad to have you here. Thank you for taking the time to join me.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Megan. I'm excited to be here.
I can't wait to just harvest all the information here so I can hopefully have a very smooth transition through the season that is probably lurking.
Possible. It's possible for you to do that. And so many women don't think it is.
I didn't think it is. That's why, I really was like, okay, this is information that we need. A lot of my listeners are women in midlife season. And so, and any of you guys out there, if you're listening, listen in and be a good, helpful resource and a cheerleader as the women that you love navigate through some things. And what we're going to learn is in a more pleasant way, which is amazing.
Exactly. And those women need that support. So, man, yeah, be there for your woman because she's all you have.
I love it. So I know that a little bit about your story, but I want you to let the listeners know, like, you really went through an unpleasant suffering season and not really understanding exactly like what was happening. Tell us a little bit, if you can, paint the picture of the extremities of the situation, before you knew there could be a different way.
Yeah, for me, it was perimenopause was awful for me. And to be honest, I'm still in perimenopause, but I was looking for answers. I had these symptoms that I didn't know what was going on. I didn't recognize who I'd become. I was throwing plates at my poor husband's head for no reason whatsoever, because the sweetest man on earth. And just for no reason, I would lose it. I would be in tears. I looked for answers. I was having heavy periods. I had no energy and I was getting really depressed. And the day happened when I actually locked myself in my bedroom, and I just figured that my family's life was better if I just left. And I didn't know what that looked like. So I locked myself in my bedroom and was so low. And it took some time for my husband to actually get in the bedroom just to see what was going on, what he could do, because none of us understood why I was so upset. And it was after that I knew that I had to do something, because it was affecting him, it was affecting me, our two kids. And so I started diving into getting answers, trying to find help. And I went to my doctor, like that's your first step, right? And what I got dealt with at the doctor's office was devastating to me. And it wasn't because he told me anything, it was he told me absolutely nothing. He said, "This is normal. It's just part of being a woman. You just have to suck it up." Well, you know what? If it's really bad, I could give you some hormones or give you a hysterectomy or antidepressants. It really didn't answer any of my questions, but to be told that, no, it's normal and just to suck it up was really defeating to me.
Ooh, yeah. I'm like, bleh. As I'm hearing you say that, I'm like, yucky. I am so tired of being told, like, this is just what it's like to have this female anatomy. It's just unpleasant. So bye. It's like
Yeah, so
not
it was really
helpful.
devastating, really
How
devastating. So I started digging in for
Yeah.
answers.
Oh, I love it. I love it. How long of a time period was this that you were kind of riding these waves? Is this months? Is this years?
It's years. So
Okay.
it probably went on for about 4 to 5 years, and I didn't know what was going on. I had never heard of perimenopause in my life at
Mm,
that point, and not knowing what it was.
yeah.
And so there was a few years, but then once I knew what was happening and I started digging into it and getting the answers. So I'm actually an accountant, and I went back to school to become a holistic nutritionist for
Ooh.
women's health. So
Oh,
I
wow.
changed my whole career around what happened to me. And
Wow.
it's just learning and like knowing what that I went through that I don't want other women to go through. Because like it's been 13 years that I've been in perimenopause. I haven't had symptoms for the last probably 4-ish years,
Oh,
but there
wow.
was, what, a good 7 years that I was having really bad symptoms.
Okay, so this is interesting to me because I don't know. I still don't really know like what are even the normal answers of if yes, in fact, this is stuff that is quote unquote normal. Like, what does that mean? How long are these windows of time usually for people? And as we are starting to experience these symptoms, like what, how do we even heighten our awareness around that so that we can even grasp? I mean, I don't know. I feel like I have like 7 questions and I have a really bad habit of asking 7 questions in a row instead of pausing. So let's start there.
Okay.
Like hearing that it's that large of a time frame is baffling to me. I thought like going through menopause is what I heard as a young person was that, and I thought it just happened in like a few months. Is genuinely what
Exactly,
I
and that's what you think, right? Because this story in our head, and it's what we've been told. And what I learned is just because our symptoms are common doesn't mean that they're normal.
thought. Ooh, okay. Say that again.
Just because our symptoms are common doesn't mean that they're normal.
Oh goodness. Okay, I can't wait to kind of
Yeah.
unpack this.
And symptoms, like when you think of menopause, I'm going to surmise that you think of hot flashes, night sweats,
Mhm.
probably some weight gain, maybe some moodiness. That's kind of
Yeah.
probably, I'm thinking where you're thinking about. But you
Mhm.
start to think of perimenopausal symptoms, which is a hormonal imbalance. There's so many more that we don't link to understanding that it's part of our perimenopause journey, which can be 10 plus years. So women
Mm.
in their late 30s can be starting to go through perimenopause. Normal age of menopause is on average about 52, can be a little bit later, can be sooner. And menopause is actually just one day in our life. And it's actually defined
Oh.
as the day after 12 months without a menses. So you haven't had a
Oh.
period for a full year. That day after is considered menopause. Everything after that is post-menopause. Everything before those 10 plus years is perimenopause, premenopause. But some of the symptoms that you might not be aware of is like all of a sudden, you're used to going to the gym, you're working out, but now you're sore all the time, you're not recovering.
Mm.
You now have high blood pressure. You have maybe been told you have a fatty liver. Maybe you've been told you have insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes. You start to see your hair falling out, your
Mm.
skin's changing. You get those mood swings, like I said, maybe added anxiety, depression. Your fingernails aren't growing the same. You're not sleeping. You're getting insomnia. You're wondering. You're looking at the clock. It's midnight, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and you don't feel like you're ever rested. Um, oh my goodness, there's so many. Some people have heart palpitations. They have tingling in their extremities. They have a burning mouth sensation. There's so many things. Once you hit your late 30s, if you get this new little diagnosis, if you're not quite, this isn't the same, or, you know, yes, there's the body composition change. So I'm going to do what I've always done to lose weight, and it doesn't work anymore. Hello,
Mm.
hormones.
Mm.
So all of those are kind of indications of perimenopause starting. There's so many different symptoms. Urinary tract infections increase in those. Say the brittle hair, nails, hair falling out, so many more. So it's just really when you're in that late 30s, early 40s, if you're starting to notice changes going on in your life that aren't normal,
Mm-hmm.
that you haven't experienced ongoing, it's likely your hormones starting to talk to you.
Mm. Okay, so I definitely want to hear what our hormones are saying. Before we go there, though, can you tell me what types of things, when you started looking for answers, you didn't like what you heard from the doctor, you started to do your own research. I mean, what kinds of things were you Googling? Like, what were things that you were looking up so that our listeners can hear that? I'm sure that they're not alone in this of just being like, why am I going crazy? I mean, what are the things you literally started researching?
Well, and some of them were good things to research. Some of them were great things to research. But always, what should I be eating for menopause?
Okay.
Why can't I remember anything? Why do I keep saying words backwards? That's another symptom.
Oh,
Brain fog.
well, I'm getting diagnosed right here and now. I'm like, okay, well, a lot of these things you're saying are resonating. So I'm
Yeah.
feeling
And
peace
they
in knowing there's going to be a better way for me to navigate this.
definitely. So I always knew because I had pulled myself out of the corporate world a few years before I knew that this was perimenopause. My journey was starting to change a little bit. So that I was focusing more on what supplement to take, what should I be eating. But even Googling what should you be eating for menopause, there's a lot of noise out there.
Mm,
Go low carb, don't eat this, eat this. It's so
mhm.
confusing. But the way I look at it, we should never be giving up food groups. We should never be cutting everything out of our life because when we do, it impacts our hormones again. So
Oh, yeah.
there's a time and place for everything, but until you understand it, and I'm going to drop another nugget here for you, Megan, is that you still have a cycle when you don't have a physical cycle. So if you're not seeing your regular cycle because you're not having a bleed, our body still functions in a cycle. So our hormones still function
Mm,
in a cycle. They
okay.
change when we hit perimenopause and menopause, how those hormones function, but we still need to support them. So we can support them by syncing our cycle through nutrition, movement, our
Mm,
self-care. So we look at it as a whole, like that whole mind, body, spirit, right? We got to look at a
yeah.
holistic everything. It's not just one thing that you do in perimenopause and menopause to help support the body. It has to be a combination.
Mm, mhm. Okay. So this is great. This is getting good. So when you start gathering this information, what changes did you get to implement that started bringing relief? Like, bring us to that season as you're
Yeah, for sure.
shifting gears.
So some supplements I really did went into some different supplements that I knew that supported my body at that time. I went into a whole nutritional detox.
Mm,
So plus I was looking at foods that I needed to support my hormones that would actually fuel my body. So we
mhm.
need to be eating the protein, the carbs, the fats,
Yeah.
and different foods at different times of. So in the last half of our cycle, we need more sugar from the form of like root vegetables. But in the
Mm,
first half of our cycle, the body doesn't do well with that added glycemic index rise from those root vegetables. That's when we want to go with more your leafy greens and your cruciferous vegetables, those
mm,
lower blood sugar spiking vegetables, right? So there's always going to be foods that are going to get you there easier than not, but like no food is bad. And that's the biggest thing is I don't want people to think that this is good and this is bad. Food, we need food to live.
yeah.
But it's learning which foods will actually fuel your hormones.
I don't know if I've ever heard about it being different at different parts of our cycle. I do track my cycle on an app. which
Yeah.
just I like to have a reminder. Oh, I'm gonna be experiencing a mood swing in a day or two. That's kind of why
And
I
that's
use it.
powerful, right? Once you know that, if you know you're going to have that mood swing, well, then you can prepare for it. And like
Yep.
tracking is so, so powerful because
Yeah.
you tend to, that week before you're looking for chocolate, and you just want to put your comfies on and go on the couch with your favorite blanket and binge on Netflix, right?
Sure.
Where is like, your cycle starts and you're going, I'm she woman. I'm going to go out and do everything. And
Mm,
so then you can eat according to that. You can exercise. Like that's when you should go out and push harder exercise. That's when you
mm,
should lift heavy stuff. So
mhm.
it's really, really interesting. And so for those women that don't have a physical cycle, it's you sync it to the moon. So the new moon is equivalent to day one of your cycle.
Ooh, okay. This is helpful
The
because I
full
was saying
moon.
maybe not everyone follows the tracker. And
Yeah.
also, besides, the reminder, because that's really all I have it set is because I do mood swing really big,
Yeah.
and I wanted to be more in control of how I navigated and was gentle with myself. So, and I definitely have heard some of the stuff about like how to gauge things with the moon. So that could be tried and true for all women.
Yeah, so, like, if you're having still a physical cycle, so you're still having that physical bleed, then your day 1 is on the day that your period starts. But if
Yeah.
you're not having that, your day 1 is you line it up with the new moon,
Okay.
and it's the same because the moon has a very physical impact on the body.
Right.
You notice mood changes, you notice that because the moon well, it can change tidal waves in the ocean, so and our body's made up of water. Why wouldn't
Yeah.
it affect us?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. This is like the kind of information that's just like, whoa, because it sounds almost like too simple, but we're not applying it.
For sure, and the doctors don't know, but unfortunately, your doctors are never gonna tell you because they don't learn about this stuff in medical
Right.
school. They're not taught it.
Yeah. Well, would they be I mean, boy, that's a whole other subject of what people are getting taught in different industries and stuff, because I always kind of feel like to some degree the medical space can be a little challenging because it's also a practice, and there's these certain things and nothing is a perfect space in there. And I definitely, I don't know. I'm like this episode is not about me tangenting in those things. But like there's so many things that can be remedied in a natural
Yes,
way.
for
So
sure.
you're giving us these insights. If we're watching our cycles or we're kind of tracking or at least heightening our awareness around this, what is the difference then of like when you're eating the right things or you're resting appropriately or doing what we need to cater? Is that just like it pacifies us then so that we don't feel the symptoms so severely? I mean, how does it actually work?
So pacify is a good word, but so that knowledge is power, right? So when you have that knowledge, yes, you can prepare because you know what's going on. But when you're eating the foods and you're working out to that cycle, then you're supporting your hormones. So those ups and downs, those dips and valleys aren't going to be as severe as they were. So, you get those mood swings, that few days before you're going, I'm going to have this emotional upset, they're not going to be as big. And you know what? Taking supplements to support the hormones at that time too. So stress is huge player on our hormones. So taking a
Mm,
supplement to help support your hormones at that time is really a great thing, right? Because if you can sleep better, if that car cutting you off at the traffic light doesn't send you into a spiral, everybody's much better off for it, right? So it's all
mhm.
those little wee things that add up. And like you said, it seems so simple and really it is, but people don't know what they don't know. And there's just all these little wee intricacies that go into it as well, right? So
Yeah, okay. So when you are working with clients and maybe just haven't even considered this yet, right? They're probably coming to you at a point of I'm feeling all these things and I like don't know what to do with myself, and they want this relief, I would assume. So how do we go through that journey? What does a successful journey look like for your client from going from yikes, help,
Yeah.
I'm out of control, to like figuring out how to implement these
So
tools?
it's really powerful to walk a client through this whole journey. And the first thing is no two women are the same.
Mm,
So I tweak my program for them because, like, I mean, there's a lot of nutrition. So one client in particular, she came to me just wanting to feel better. She didn't understand why she wasn't feeling great. So I always put like small habits into place. So it's nothing that's life shattering, but it's the same thing. If there's a pilot that takes the plane off, if he shifts 1 degree difference, he's landing in a different city somewhere else in the world. And
yeah.
that's what it is. It's these small little wee shifts. But she had never linked. She had had migraines and daily headaches since she was 7.
Oof.
She was in her 60s.
Oh my
Within
goodness.
the first 3 weeks of working together, we weren't even working on our headaches. We had
Mm,
uncovered something. She no longer has daily headaches. She might
mm,
have a migraine once or twice a month now instead of once or twice a week,
oof.
and
Wow.
it's changed her life. So it's what she went through, and she goes, "And then I've lost weight just naturally," and that's not something that I focus on as weight loss for women
Mm,
but once your hormones are in balance, it's going to happen. Just
mm,
naturally, your body's gonna find its own rhythm, right? So
yeah.
she was out camping this summer. She says, "It's the first time in 25 years I've gone camping," and our friends said, "You wouldn't have been able to do this last year because you would have had a migraine that sent you home."
Oh boy.
So her life was hugely impacted. And, other clients, like today is working with a client, she goes, "Oh my goodness, I just realized that she went through it. She was doing so good, and then she had a week where she kind of went off her schedule." She goes, "I
Mm,
felt like crap. I don't wanna feel like that anymore. I know the difference now." But we never did big, huge changes. It's small, little wee changes, but figuring it out what works for you, what works for the other person, because it's all a little bit different, and it's getting to the root cause. What's causing your symptoms? Because there's
mm.
difference. Like, so there's some common ones like estrogen dominance, insulin resistance, stress, thyroid function, liver health. Those are all common root causes, but we got to kind of dig into them to find out what's going on.
And is a lot of that tied to our emotional state, things that we maybe haven't resolved that are causing internal struggle versus the food intake versus not sleeping enough, or all of the above?
All of the above. So there's those limiting beliefs. There's those stories that we've been told. There's that subconscious going on. There's Charlie Brown back here going wah 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 wah. I guess that's not Charlie Brown, but
Yeah,
but
this
we're hearing
teacher.
that wah wah
Yeah, we know
wah
it.
sound going on all the time. That we think there's stuff going. So I help you. I help my clients like on to figure those out, to figure out the lock and key that fits in there.
Mhm.
And but it is, you think of your whole health, your whole being as a tire. If something's not working properly, like your hormones aren't balanced, well, it's letting out a little air out of that. You're limping across. Well, when you're limping, well, now it's going to take it from your thyroid health. So now you might see a little imbalance with your thyroid. We got a flatter tire, and now all of a sudden your blood sugar is going to get affected. You may be told that you have high blood sugar, you're pre-diabetic, you're on a more flatter tire. And there's my proper English coming through, more flatter. Um,
I love it.
but eventually, if we don't put air in each of those different pieces, you are on a completely flat tire and you can't
Mm,
function in life. And so many women end up like that they don't recognize who they are. Like me, I didn't recognize the woman who was looking at me in the mirror. I didn't know who she was. She was cranky, she was miserable, she wasn't happy, and but she was always pretending that she was happy because, you know what, we're a go-getter, we're a yes girl.
oh, yeah.
So many women feel alone during this journey through perimenopause and menopause. And after having been there and feeling alone, that's not okay with me. And
Mhm.
that's why I have to be so vocal about
Mhm.
making this change, making menopause, um, a common topic to talk about. There's not to have the stigma that's wrapped around it, because so many women, there's a stigma. They're losing their jobs, they're not getting promotions at work. You
Mm.
know, I was dealing with a lady a few weeks ago that she came to me and she says, like, "I don't know what's going on, but there's something going on. My boss walked in the door and asked me if I was okay, and I said, 'No, I'm not, but I don't know what's wrong. Please
Mm.
tell me there's a solution.'"
Mm.
So just talking and giving her some ideas about what we could do, working on that stress, let's work on food, let's work on gut health, like all those little wee pieces. It has to be a whole package. It can't be just go work on your diet. That's not gonna do it alone.
Totally.
Yeah.
There's a lot of willingness to be honest with ourselves, sounds like, to really start stepping
Yeah.
into this. I mean,
Yeah,
it
you
takes
have to
bravery.
admit that, number 1, that you're going through this hormonal change, that you're
Yeah.
not feeling like yourself, and that you need help. Because if there's any parts of that, like, there's not other women that I talk to, "Oh, I'm not going through perimenopause. I'm never gonna be like that." But yet they're silently suffering. So,
Yeah.
I don't want them to silently suffer. No, but they have to come to that realization on their own.
Oh, totally. I'm thinking of all these different things, and it's like, it's no wonder none of us talk about these things because we really are not supposed to talk about any of these things. I remember even in my own household, I'm the youngest of 6 in a blended home, and there's 4 of us girls and then my mom. And and tampons were called candy bars as a code word
Oh,
when I was younger. And I didn't think about that being odd until I was an adult, but I was like, "Why were we being so quiet about that in a household filled with women to, like, make the brothers comfortable?" But then they'd be confused because they'd be, like, looking for the candy bars when they saw that on the grocery list. And so, like, and that's just, like, one little example of
yeah.
knowing that these are things that we don't just get to have as regular conversation, and we
Well,
kind of
even
feel
my own mother, when I was going through this rocky time, I said to her, because I didn't, I was living in a different province because I'm here in Canada, actually.
Mhm,
So I was in another province at the time when my mom was going through her change. And I said to her,
mhm.
"Mom, what was it like for you?" And she point blank told me, "Oh, I don't know. I don't talk about that. I forget about that. It's gone." So she
Ooh,
wouldn't even talk to me about it
oh,
then, right? So it was
yeah.
bad. It was like,
That's so interesting.
yeah.
Also, this is sort of unrelated, or is it? Have you ever read the book, The Body Keeps the Score?
No.
Oh my gosh, add that to your read list. It's very in-depth, but essentially, it's all these things anything that happens to us, not like they have to be like these really negative traumas, but our bodies are constantly keeping record of what they're
Yes.
experiencing. And so for
Exactly.
us to use our brain to discount it or disregard it and go, "Nah, I'm just not gonna think about that," or "I'm gonna close that chapter, I'm not gonna talk about that anymore," is really a disservice and probably well, according to that book, is very unhealthy, and it starts to manifest in other issues and cancers and all these anxiety and all these different things that are happening to our physical bodies that are actually tied to emotional well-being, like a kind of the holistic thing, but like our bodies remember our even if we're not thinking about it or registering, we're picking up on all these different cues. And
Yeah.
anyway,
It's that subconscious gets in there too, and you don't realize why you're doing certain things. But there's something that you've learned, you heard, you made that memory that
right.
really plays with it. And actually, during my journey, I was working with a naturopathic doctor. And she's going, well, she'd ruled out a whole bunch of stuff. And I went to see a trauma therapist, and we worked
Oh,
through past things that I didn't, as far as I'm concerned, I didn't have any trauma in my life as we define trauma. But it's
sure.
those undefined, those unknown things that happened that we don't recognize the impact, stuff that I heard as a little child
Yeah.
that impact me as a grown adult.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Uh, yeah, we gotta dive deep, friends. anyone out there listening going, oh crap. Something I think I say a lot is like, once you start opening the doors like this and learning more, it can feel really overwhelming because then it's sort of like never ending. We always have more we can learn and grow from, and it's just an ongoing journey of development and
For sure.
healing and repeat.
But that's why, when I coach, and that's why I do what I do, is because it's so overwhelming. And it's like, I've been there, I've done that, I've gone through all that. I'm the person that does go down those rabbit holes, that I changed my career.
Right. That's amazing to me, and kudos to you for doing that. And I think it's true probably for a lot of coaches, and I think this is true for me too. The stuff that I find myself coaching are things that were really impactful for me, that I really benefited from learning in that space. And that's why I'm even more excited about sharing those things. And yet I'm still learning. Like, I'm having to constantly learn more about presentation skills and how to use yes and, especially when I'm mad about something. Like, I feel like in our areas of passion, we get to see like the underbelly of why it's so important, like how we can take those darker things and bring the light that we're so passionate about to it.
So, so good. Yes, it's important.
Oh, so there's hope, folks, as you're listening out there. And if you're in the season, like, what I guess, like, what are some really basic, just like first steps? What are like little things that someone could do today if they're hearing themselves having some of those continued complaints? Maybe they're not voicing them to other people. We're probably holding on to them and we're getting mad at ourselves for being out of control or whatever, whatever we're doing. What are some of those things that if someone is listening right now and they're hearing it and they're like, oh, okay, I'm there, I'm feeling these things. How can they start to make some shifts?
So one of the very first things that a woman has to do, if they, whatever I've said today has resonated with them, is they need to give themselves a big old hug of self-love and
Mm,
recognize this season that you're in, and that it's okay, and recognizing that they aren't alone. That's one of the biggest thing, is that making that admission that this is where you're at and
mm,
that you don't have to go through this alone. But besides that, taking time, and I know self-care, the word self-care is overflogged and used and what have you, but taking that time to sit in with yourself and check in is so important, because you can actually, as quickly as taking a few deep breaths during your day, you can actually break the circuit that's going on of that busy, because your body doesn't know the difference between, um, what fire alarms going off
mm,
versus email texts coming in, right? The body recognizes those both as stressors, both as equally important, but they shouldn't be, right? Just getting a ding on your
mm,
phone saying you got a text message shouldn't send your body into a fight or flight, but it does. So stopping and taking a couple of deep breaths will actually break that circuit. So that's something I always encourage my clients to do, is throughout the day, is just to stop and take a few deep breaths. And it doesn't have to be long, like it's just like
mm.
if you do that right there alone, you can feel the difference in how your body reacts. Go pee, sit on the toilet, do it,
Right.
breathe. So that alone can help your hormones. Um, And then learning what your symptoms are, or reaching out for help, whether it's a naturopathic doctors, whether it's following me on social media, whether it's because there's so many of us out there that want to help. Like I said, that is my goal, is just to help more women so they don't feel like alone. Because there's actually a stat, and it's a Canadian statistic, but there's over 40% of women going through perimenopause feel like they're alone.
Mm,
That was something like 4 million women, and that's in Canada, so I can't imagine what it is in the States or in the
mm.
world, right? And that's 4 million women. That's not acceptable that they feel alone.
Yeah. Ugh.
So,
You are not alone. Like, I'm gonna just start singing some songs here. This
I'm
is
not
so
going to.
good. I know. I like selfishly bring people on that I know can fortify my personal little corner of the world. Um, and I just want, yeah, I want people to feel connected and to know exactly what you said. We're not alone. oh my gosh, whatever, that's the quote of the day is it's, even though it's common, it's not normal. So there's things that, what a relief it is to know that there are ways that we can make slight adjustments in our life, our daily routine, the things we consume that can provide relief from things being unnecessarily uncomfortable.
Yeah, for sure. And it's literally small little wee changes that you make. It's not an all or nothing kind of thing. It's small, it's doable in a family. It's
Mm,
doable if you're on your own. It's just they're doable.
I love it. Thank you so much, Carol, for taking the time to join me on the podcast and to shine some light on, honestly, a topic that sits there in the dark a little bit too much. We can talk about these things, friends. We can communicate, reach out for help, and look for things that can bring some more joy and some actual resources that we can put into play so that we feel more connected and feel happier most of the time.
Exactly, and thank you for having
Oh,
me, but that's the key. Let's start talking about it.
yeah,
Even if it's with your girlfriends, maybe you're not comfortable talking with your male boss yet, but
right.
let's change that conversation because it needs to happen because years ago it was, you know what, women were put in asylums, women were burned at the
Mhm.
stake because of menopause. Like,
Mm,
let's stop that. It's not like that now, thank goodness, but
right.
there's still that stigma, so let's change it.
For sure. Awesome. Thanks so much, Carol.
Love it. Thank you.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. I hope that you got as many wonderful, not even tidbits. These were full blown helpful resources and actionable steps that we can take to feel healthier and happier inside our bodies and to feel in more control of our experience. Thank you for coming back each week for a new episode. I hope that you've been enjoying the guests that I've been bringing on. I'd love to hear from you guys. So feel free to message me, leave a message through the Spotify app if that's where you're listening, of things that you have gleaned from this or other episodes. If you have not already, please hit the subscribe button. And I would really, really appreciate if you can take a moment to review the show as well. And one of the things that I want to wrap up on this episode is there's a lot to be said about self-leadership, and we need people to take these types of stories, these conversation points, these things that can be kind of challenging for us. And when we get to take ownership of that and become leaders within ourselves to navigate through some of these physical and emotional challenges, we become even more resilient and able to be in our highest capacity, which of course has a ripple effect around all the different people and projects that we touch. And I'm a huge fan of doing things a little bit better when we know how. So take this as an invitation to give yourself some more tools for self-leadership. And if you'd like anything in the space of group leadership in the team and corporate environment, you know where to find me at improvteamculture.com, where we get to bring in the rules of improv to help you guys collaborate and communicate effectively, and honestly, to have a little bit of fun and laughter. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will catch you next time. Thanks for tuning in to the I Hardly Know Her podcast. For information about leadership workshops, public speaker training, and all things kooky Megan, check out improvteamculture.com. We'll catch you next time.